In this video, we're going to be taking a look into the advanced difficulty set of the profile settings in Kaffelogic Studio. To start off, to change the difficulty, go to the top of the screen to the options menu, then click on difficulty and go down to advanced. In this difficulty, we can see that we've gained one major new tool to use called zones, or we also refer to these as boost zones. We also refer to these as boost zones. Boost zones are manual overrides of the roaster's control system. For those of you that have roasted on a drum roaster, think of it like stepping in and making a manual gas adjustment, but now it's amongst the roaster's control system. Boost zones are an ROR adjustment between 2 points that you set. So this will add or subtract X amount of degrees per minute from that section of roast. So let's go through how to set up a boost zone. The first thing we need to ask ourselves is, why do we need to add a boost zone? The main reason is to correct any deviations where the roaster system cannot pull things back in line, such as an instance where you might have a coffee that lifts off and away from the profile around first crack. You can add a negative zone to force the roaster to pull it back down. The first options that we have are our time windows, the start and end of the zones. When choosing the window, it's always a good idea to start the zone before the deviation occurs. So if you have a deviation that happens at 5 minutes, then maybe look at starting your zone at 4 minutes 30 or 4 minutes 45, a little bit before the deviation actually happens. This is just so we can starve off a little bit of that energy trying to prevent it. So for this example, let's say it happens at 5 minutes. So we'll start our zone at 4 minutes 30 and we will run it to just after it would happen, 5 minutes 30. Now this works for both instances where the profile runs above or below. The only thing you need to change is if it's a positive or negative number. A positive number is a positive boost, it'll add energy or boost the energy. And if it's a negative number, it'll be a negative zone, so it'll starve it of energy. The number itself is something that you will need to experiment with to find out what works best. If you have a very sudden takeoff, then play around with the value of -5. If it's quite minor, then maybe -3 or -2. You can go even lower if you need to. So for this example, let's change it to -2. If your profile doesn't have enough energy going into it, you see your bean temperature dip under the profile line, then try the same as above, but a positive. So +5 or +2 or +3 if it's more minor, +5 if it's more major. Boost zones are usually one of the very final adjustments that I will make to a profile, as using them early on in development of a custom profile could prove complicated once we start manipulating things a bit further and start to have a bit more unpredictable outcomes when we're still establishing the general structure of the profile curve. So now that we've entered those values, if we go back to our temperature curve, we can see the zone. It's represented by this little highlight mark. So this is where our zone will start and where it'll end. There is one more setting that's been included in this, and that's cooldown speed. These settings control your cooling speed when your coffee is done roasting. The cooldown high speed is the speed at which your fan will initially ramp up to straight after reaching your desired end temperature. The cooldown low speed is the constant lower speed that your coffee will continue to cool at after the initial cooling time. If you are finding that you're getting beans in the chaff collector, then lower this value from 17,000 to maybe 16,500 or even 16,000. Just be careful not to go too low, as you will need to keep the fan values high enough that you will still cool the coffee down. If we lower it too much, we could end up with the coffee retaining a bit too much heat during cooldown phase, and it'll end up a little bit more developed than what we're after. Also, something to note is that these cooldown settings are specific to your current profile and not roaster wide. So if you change your fan speed from 17,000 to 16,500 on the profile you're working on, the next one that you load up, if it's different, will not have that same cooldown speed. We've uploaded a few tutorials already so that you can get to know your roaster a little bit better and level up your home roasting. Enjoy using the boost zones to get your profiles that little bit more polished. And there are even more tutorials on the way. Until then, happy roasting.